My dad was just a workaholic and he was incredibly proud of me. So anytime he would see me on TV, he'd just start crying. He was just a proud dad. And my mom, she had a gambling addiction. So I think the effort she would take to kind of like siphon some of the money I would earn to gamble, the effort she would put into that kind of took away whatever power she might have had to discipline me when I started to go off the rails. So we kind of had an agreement where I wouldn't bust her balls for stealing my money and gambling, and she wouldn't bust my balls for whatever I was doing.
This is the Knocking Doors Down podcast, featuring celebrities, experts, and everyday people who have overcome adversities, including addiction, mental health, and trauma, to live purposeful lives. And that's what Knocking Doors Down is all about. Shaun Weiss is my guest on this episode of Knocking Doors Down. You might know him as Greg Goldberg in the Mighty Ducks, also in the Ben Stiller film Heavyweights, and so many other acting roles. Unfortunately, Shaun faced some addiction issues that nearly took his life. It was heavily publicized with photos of him all over the internet and news that he had gotten to the point of even losing all of his teeth. Now, Shaun is over 2 years sober. He's not only thriving within the recovery community, becoming a source of hope and inspiration, and helping others through their journey. We have an amazing conversation. Shaun drops a lot of knowledge in this episode, as well as some insight in how he fell into his addiction, and it connects to different traumas throughout his childhood, plus a lot of the emotions that he went through in his career. 5150 LTM. That's right. Not only is it a lifestyle brand that can fit whatever it is you're trying to achieve in life, but they give back to the community. Right now, I am wearing my new 5150 hat, warm leather jacket. As well, I got my new 5150 joggers on that I like to wear around the winter time. And you, the listener of Knocking Doors Down, get 20% off every time you shop at 5150 LTM. All you have to do is use the code KDD20 at checkout and get 20% off. And of course, I said it helps within the community. And how does 5150 give back to the community? Portions of the sales benefit the Carlos Vieira Foundation. Their 3 amazing programs: the Race to End the Stigma, which focuses on mental health; the Race for Autism, helping families in the community who have children that have special needs and are on the autism spectrum scale; and the Race to Be Drug-Free, providing free after-school athletic programs to the youth within our community, keeping them off the streets, away from gangs and drugs. More on the Carlos Vieira Foundation, go to carlosvieirafoundation.org. Here's Shaun Weiss.
I went on Tucker Carlson, and I revealed to him that one time on meth, I had masturbated in a tent under a bridge for 14 hours in a row. And after I said it, I was like, maybe not the best thing to talk about from a PR standpoint.
But it is where we go, you know?
I mean, it was kind of a half joke, but yeah, I was in that space.
Hey man, it's okay. Sounds familiar. I went through a lot of the same stuff.
I feel like I'm such a different person now that I really don't mind talking about, the horrible crap that happened, just because I feel like I'm a different person. So I'm not really as ashamed or embarrassed as I used to be before my 1,000 hours of therapy that I've had over the last 3 years. Over 1,000 hours. That's a lot of therapy, right?
Yeah. So you're about an expert now, right? What are they? Is it 1,000 or is it 10,000 to be
10,000. 10,000. I will be a master at getting therapy.
We could start a club.
Yeah, right. Well, I gotta be honest. It helped. First of all, thanks for Medi-Cal, because I can't imagine how much 1,000 hours of therapy would have cost. That's
right.
Expensive. That's.
Yeah. Thinking back, yeah. And I'll probably, maybe we'll talk about it a little later, but I started a totally different method with a buddy of mine, who's like, hey, I just want to challenge you. I'm doing this story work. So it was actually me writing out like the different areas I was struggling in, and then we'd write the story and reframe it. And I was like, holy shit, dude, this helps more than the people I was paying $100 an hour for, So
Yeah, because when you start to analyze yourself and start to unpack stuff, the awareness is the half the battle. Once you understand why you're a certain way, you can kind of overcome it.
Yeah.
Once you know, well, this happened to me as a kid, that's why I'm like this. Then you
Yeah.
can grow from it. But if you're not aware, it's kind of like you're kind of like trapped in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I was and definitely in the people pleasing, lack of boundaries, and like that's still the big key thing, working on boundary. My last relapse was all about boundaries, and it's not the other person's fault. It's my fault, and gosh,
Really.
that's the tough
So
tough
what do you
thing.
mean? In what way did your issue with boundaries lead to the relapse?
Being a people pleaser, a, so I mean, people pleasing is a lie in itself, right? It's manipulation. If we're sitting and we're not,
I suffer from the same disease.
yeah, if we're not having good boundaries and we're going and just letting someone dictate what we're going to do just so that we get the perception that they like us, so it's this loop of a lie and false connectivity and everything else. For me it was just that, that whole thing, because the person, I allowed all of the self-esteem and resonance of the connection to sit in their hand, and when they crushed it, and I went from cool to a piece of shit just like that.
Like
Well,
that.
then it's the addict brain. It was easy to go, you're right, I am. And the ultimate pain in the story I've been telling myself forever because of stuff that happened to me, here it is. I'm in it. Why not drink? Because that was my solution, which clearly not a solution, as you
Not
know.
a good solution.
Yeah. Hey, Shaun, let me ask you about gratitude. I like to ask people like three things they're grateful for today.
Oh God, I'm grateful just that I woke up in the morning. I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful that I had, that I was able to make a living yesterday. And I'm grateful for all the people I met. I really do. I tuned myself to live in gratitude because I had none of that in my old life. I used to drive a BMW M3, and I was mad that it wasn't a Ferrari,
All right.
and I didn't appreciate anything, and I had to lose everything just so I could appreciate anything. Unfortunately, that was my journey. But now I literally appreciate every breath that I take. I'm consciously aware of that gift all the time.
Is a lot of that stemming from the career stuff? I mean, I would think that ego would be pretty hard to keep in check when you're young. You're
Absolutely.
yeah, like I said, you and I are about the same age, so I grew up with your work. We were talking before we hit record, and then my kids, have grown up with your work.
Easy on the my kids part. You're making me feel old. But listen, when I was a young kid, I was kind of treated like a celebrity. I was taken out of school, and then I'd fly away and do movies, and I kind of felt like, not like I was better than these kids, but like I was special, right? I was different. How could I not feel like that?
Yeah.
So it definitely built up in me this feeling where I'm kind of a snob. And I saw people on the bus, and I kind of looked down on those people. Those are the bus people. And
Mm.
that's how I kind of lived. The opposite of gratitude.
Right.
Now, after riding that bus for 3 years, I drive a 2009 Nissan Altima, and I love that thing. I mean, I so much.
Well,
You
it
don't want
took
to be on public transportation in Los Angeles, man. Whoa.
I had a buddy that's for people that you nailed it there, Los Angeles. He's like, they're pushing this initiative of public transportation. I'm going to try it to get to work. So his 45-minute took 2.5 hours.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like so
So,
people don't get it.
I mean, the public transportation is great in LA. It'll get you there, but it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you were just did a Comic Con, and you said a lot of people just coming up and really, your story of hope. I mean, I followed it, Shaun. I got to tell you, man, I'm kind of getting chills. I watched it, and like I'm probably a part of those people that were praying for you, man.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Like, that means so much. I really feel like that's the power of that prayer and the power of like the public's, well wishes definitely influenced me and manifested and helped me recover. How could it not?
Yeah. When's the point? Let's reflect on childhood because we were talking about my childhood a little more. Let's talk about Shaun. Obviously, the movie career, being in films and everything else, you're a kid. But what else was going on behind the scenes? Where was the parenting, the checks on these things, the
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. My dad was just a workaholic, and he was incredibly proud of me. So anytime he would see me on TV, he'd just start crying. He was just a proud dad. And my mom, she had a gambling addiction.
uh,
So I think the effort she would take to kind of like siphon some of the money I would earn to gamble, the effort she would put into that kind of took away whatever power she might have had to discipline me when I started to go off the rails.
mm,
So we kind of had an agreement where I wouldn't bust her balls for stealing my money and gambling, and she wouldn't bust my balls for whatever I was doing. So unfortunately, that's the way that kind of worked out. But that's really, I think that's basically what happens. Everybody, there's this stigma about child actors and how all of us end up on drugs or whatever. I think the real problem is when you're a kid and you start earning money, it's very hard for your parents to tell you what to do when you're, you know, paying the car note.
right. Right.
So, but in my case, with my particular story, I really didn't run into problems with hard drugs until my late 30s.
Mm,
And, it definitely, my whole backstory definitely figured into the final synopsis. But basically, I had a bad breakup and my father passed away, and it was those things that really put me in a depression, and that's what really put me on the meth pipe. Because the first time I hit meth, I was relieved. I didn't feel that depression anymore,
yeah.
and it was like it helped me. I say a lot that I don't know if I'd be here if I didn't start doing meth. I might have tried to kill myself or something.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was helpful at first. And that's the problem with these drugs. At first, they're performance enhancers until they, begin to destroy us.
Yeah. And I mirror what you're saying right there. I spoke at a high school, and at the end, the class questions this young lady goes, "You said you're a grateful alcoholic. Why?" And I go, "I wouldn't be here. As much as I don't encourage anyone going down the road of addiction, in an odd way, it kept me from dying, from taking my life. So I know what you mean by that. And I don't know, took away a lot of those, like you said, the depression, the emptiness, everything else, which started for me pretty young. Did you feel that pretty young? Like you said, it's not so much you were looking down on the other kids, but you said you knew you were different. So was it hard to connect with other people your age?
Um, I don't know, not really. No, I never had a problem connecting with kids. I think essentially it just became about feeling different, being isolated. Like I would go and work on these movies, and I'd miss a couple months of school, and I'd come back, and the kids were just kind of like, where was this guy? So I
Right.
mean, it was just definitely separation. They say that connection is the opposite of addiction, and definitely earlier on, I think the way my career had the most negative impact. Um, I just had a point that I really want to make. Let me remember what I was going to say. Oh, that's right. So right from a very early age, my entire feeling of my self worth was really based on my success in my career.
Right.
So if I was in a movie, things were good and people liked me and I was making money. So when I wasn't on TV and in the movies anymore, that's really what when it affected me, when that stuff went away,
Yeah.
because I was worthless. If I didn't have a BMW and I wasn't on a TV show, I had no value to anyone. So I think
Right.
that's where it really was detrimental to me when it went away. When I was on sets and stuff, it really was never a problem for me. I was never doing hard drugs, while I was working.
How long what age was it getting harder and harder to get roles?
Well, I basically, when I was I guess 21, I met like my first live-in girlfriend, and I moved her into my apartment. And it was really my first girlfriend. And I never really had that kind of relationship before. And I kind of took from the age of 6 to 21, I'd been working nonstop.
Right.
So I kind of wanted a break. I had some money in the bank, and I felt like I could just take a break. And I felt like Hollywood would be there for me when I came back. And really, what happened was I started to no show, no call for
Uh,
auditions and things like that. And that's a no in Hollywood. You can get away with just about anything. You can show up high, but you got to show up. You
right.
can't not show up. So my agents were warning me, bro, you can't do this. You got to show up. And I kind of ignored that. And I kind of just figured, I got this. And so after a couple of years, literally a couple of years went by before I even had the notion to try to go on an audition. And when I tried to get back in, the loop that I was in kind of closed off without me. And that's really how my career kind of fell off, if you would.
Is that a point then of I could imagine that trying to numb that, like you said, your self-worth was wrapped up in that.
Yeah, and then also I quit the show Freaks and Geeks. I quit that show. If you look at the cast of that show, I'm probably the only person that was on that show that's not a multimillionaire. So that's a hard pill to swallow. I
Sure.
quit that show. I didn't get fired from it. I quit. So, you know, hard to hard to reconcile as I sit here 40 years old in a sober living in a sober living. I have to lay in the bed that I made.
Right.
So, that's just part of life. But it
Yeah.
is an issue, and it is something I work on every day, and I have to maintain my mental health about it. Because if I let it, it'll start to make me depressed.
Oh, sure. I had because I had a radio career prior to this, and yeah, I had many an opportunity to maybe get into bigger markets and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I was already getting down that road. I was in the lifestyle of self abuse, and being around whatever would continue to fulfill that. So I know what you mean. I've had many a moments like, God, could I have made it far enough to work with Dr. Drew and be one of the Loveline hosts or whatever it was?
And the reality of that is, and the reality of that is, yes, you probably could have.
Yeah.
That's the thing of the beauty of life, and that's God's gift to us. I really feel like anything that we want to get done, if we focus on it, we really can do it if it's reasonable.
Yeah. What do you kind of do for daily practices to really help with that stuff? Was the things like coming to a higher power and maybe meditation, or
I am a yogi.
are
I
you?
started a practice called the Isha Kriya, Isha Kriya, Kriya. You can find it on YouTube. It's very simple. And when I started this practice, and after 6 months, I started to wake up in the morning with a joyful feeling.
Huh.
It used to take me half an hour to get out of bed, and now I'm waking up in a good mood. So I don't know how this thing works. They've mentioned it. You can read about it, but it's way too scientific for me. I can just tell you that in my own experience, it's given me the gift of waking up in the morning in a good mood, and definitely that's been the basis of my recovery. Oh, I wanted to mention this to you.
Yeah.
I really felt like I was the worst kind of heroin addict. People, I don't know if they think I was on meth, but heroin was really my DOC.
Yeah.
And in my head, there was no way I would ever quit heroin. I was just in love with this thing, and I was probably going to die from this. The idea of me quitting or getting clean, I didn't even, it's not like, is that possible? I just wouldn't have, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
So even when I got in trouble, when I got into treatment, I still had it in the back of my mind. I'm a heroin addict. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna appease these people, and then at some point, I'm gonna go back to my girlfriend. They're not gonna keep us apart. And really, what happened was I just started to pray. I knew this was gonna end in destruction. I knew this was a horrible path to travel down, and I literally just started praying. God, if you're there, please take this obsession away from me. And night after night, in an earnest way. I don't know if you're there, but if you're there, I'll tell you a good way to prove to me you're there. Get this monkey off my shoulder, and then I'll root for you. Basically, was my attitude. And sure enough, one day, literally, it was like a switch went off.
Huh.
And one day we were watching a movie in the group room in residential treatment. And in the movie, one of the characters threw down a bag of heroin. And prior to that moment, I'd have seen the heroin. I'd have been like, oh, man, I'll get that heroin. I'll snort it, smoke it. And I saw the heroin, and I was repulsed by it. And I started crying in the middle of the movie in front of everyone, because I knew at that moment that the monkey had been removed from my shoulder. I just knew that I wasn't gonna mess with that stuff again. So literally prayer in a not, I didn't have a God I was praying to. You understand what I mean, right? Just praying for help. And I really feel like that's probably the main component of how I'm sitting here coming up on 3 years in recovery, because everything else that happened to me, everything else that helped, was an offshoot of my initial, just attitude to surrender and to pray and to strengthen my connection with God through prayer and meditation and the 12 steps.
Yeah.
So that's, you asked the question, what do I do every day? I wake up and I do my yoga every day. And I do some other things. I write a journal every morning. And those two things really, when I wake up and I don't do my yoga, I can feel it the whole rest of the day. It's like when you're used to going to the gym and you don't go to the gym. So that's really the anchor for me, is that yogic practice. Isha Kriya. I tell it to everybody. I recommend it to everybody, because it's really the best gift I can give anybody, but I don't think anybody ever investigates it.
I'm going to look it up. No,
okay, good.
We'll keep in touch. I will. Yeah. Trust me. I that's been the ultimate thing about doing this, is I've met so many beautiful, wonderful, brilliant people that have dropped so many different nuggets that I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that out,
Good.
And I need to, because I got severe back problems. And I keep having people like, dude, get back to doing some yoga and stuff. And I'm like, I know. And it's that dangerous. Oh, I know. And I still think that's one of my character defects.
Oh, the old, oh, I know. So I don't have to do it. I don't have to do it because I know. I know about it. So I don't have to make it apply to me. I feel you, dude. That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
But you sound like you've been therapized. You sound like you know a lot about what's going on with you. So that's good. How long have you been in this recovery game?
5, almost 6 years, and then my relapse was February 15th, so it'll be 2 years, February 15th, 2023. And then before that, I had a pretty good span there. So, it's kind of like, on the wagon, off at 6 months, couple of years off the wagon, so.
And let me ask you, because I think about relapse sometimes, and I really don't think, were you able, when you had your relapse after having some time clean, were you able to enjoy your DOC in that I feel like if I tried to use right now, there's no way I could sit there and enjoy the drug, because I'd feel too bad.
Yeah. No, and I was gifted with that, Shaun, because when it happened, and I've had other people say this in group meetings, I was sober, mind you. I do not remember driving to the store to grab the beer.
Sure.
The next thing I consciously recall, I am on the third beer, and I got a hold of 2 people, one gentleman who's just a beautiful, brilliant person by the name of Tony Hoffman, speaks all around the country at schools, and my now sponsor. And that would, because kind of when I came out of the self-loathing or whatever, like it felt like a psychosis. It really did, to subconsciously go, there was no, I feel this, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to get my keys.
It was
I'll buy some.
non-linear. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it was just like, here it is. I think it was like 1 a.m. and I have the third beer in my hand. And I'm like, this is beyond unenjoyable. Like cause I was already doing this job. So I felt it made me feel like a fraud. Then I felt like a fraud
Right.
to my kids,
Yeah.
and anyone that was reaching out to me, like, man, wow, you get,
But that's crazy. That's crazy how powerful the addiction was, that it acted through you beyond your own conscious behavior. Like it
Yeah.
worked. It hijacked your nervous system and made your muscles move against your will. I mean, that's hijacked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this stuff is the other point I'd like to make, if it's all right.
Yeah.
I feel like a very important dimension to this whole recovery thing is the element of that it's kind of like spiritual warfare.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
If you're in your life and you're using some pills or you get high on some coke once in a while, these things are they're pulling you away from the light. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm just saying, because there's a lot of people that use, but they don't realize that they don't realize how even a little bit of usage is taking them out of tune with life. And as soon as you're out of tune, then just you it's impossible for good things to happen.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage people that, or just share the idea that there is a certain beauty to I don't want to say purity, but to what is it called when they call it straight edge, just
Yeah.
towards when you like being clean, living
Yeah.
clean. Life opens up in a different way to you than it does when you're dabbling in stuff. This is to the person that's using, but their life maybe not unmanageable yet.
Yeah.
So your life is still manageable, but you're using. I guarantee you're closing off a lot of doors to yourself, and life is not unfolding to you in the way and with the abundance that it should and could, if you were to eliminate those things and go away from the dark side and just
Yeah.
so I don't even know how to really say that, but it's important to me. I see a lot of young kids in recovery. I live at a sober living. I've seen probably 100 young guys, and these guys are like early 20s, and I feel like they're in treatment because some adult is telling them to get clean, but really in their mind they don't really see what's wrong with getting high and taking some Molly, and you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
important. um I don't know. Without repeating myself, it's just life. It's basically, when I was using, life was Murphy's Law to me. Anything bad that can happen happened. And now, just that I'm clean, I just see one possibility after the other. Anything good can happen, happens. It's literally the opposite.
And that's that beautiful power of our mind. Like, it doesn't mean bad things aren't happening, but we've retrained ourselves to, like, as silly as it is, what is that, little Nicky? Let the light in, and
Dude,
we do. We start to our
great
what
way to put it.
what we're seeing in the world anymore. And it's not that we don't, like, I got a homeless dude I've adopted here because he's I don't know how to help him get sober. He doesn't want to, but I help him get some water or whatever.
You help them survive.
Yeah, and it's like every time I go and see him and I say, "Hey, Arthur, what's going on?" It's like somebody knows my name. Like, if he's sober, it means something. If he's not, it's just like, like, who are you? Are you the dealer? No. Okay. Can I have some Gatorade? So it's those things that we start to see different. Like, I was a judgmental addict. I before would have went,
look at this guy. At least I'm not sitting here out on the streets, And now I go, this is a
You're
human that
absolutely
just
right.
needs some empathy. Like the way I see the world is different. So to me, there is more light because I've changed myself and still so much work to do.
You said it perfectly. It's not so much that life changes, your perspective on it changes. And it also has to do with gratitude. And start there, folks. If you're trying to get here to recovery, start with gratitude. That's a great place to start.
Oh yeah. And do you fight it? I fight it. Like some days I I realize it is my negative mind that wants to creep back in and just not focus on that.
It happens to me all the time, constantly. Like yesterday, I was tracked in the parking garage at the Comic-Con, and I slipped back into old negative me. F this, F that. How can this happen? This is a mess. And then I had to remind myself, bro, but you have to catch yourself and train yourself to see things differently. But it does happen all the time where I slip back into old habits, and I have to just put myself in check.
Yeah.
Relax. You're at Comic Con. You're breathing. You're not on drugs. You're not homeless. Dude, the last time I was at the LA Convention Center for the Comic Con, the last time I was at the LA Convention Center, I was homeless. I had gone there to see some kind of event, but they wouldn't let me into the LA Convention Center last time I was there. So 3 years later, I'm on stage moderating the Sandlot Q&A. So it felt good, dude, to make that kind of progress.
Oh yeah. And that's the kind of things that we can do. And of course that's your story, Shaun. And for whoever it is, their story is different. It doesn't have to be, that type of setting and scenario to matter, and reflect on it differently. Like when you tell me that, there's no ego in that.
Right.
Because we know what happens, and I'm a firm believer of it. Ego edging God out, and when we do that, that's when stuff goes bananas.
Yeah, they in like when I went into residential treatment, they introduced us to the 12 steps, but they didn't base their curriculum on it. And I don't know. I think 12 steps is an excellent program. I feel like even if you don't go to an AA meeting, or you don't know where an AA meeting is, you can still get the big book and read that thing, and that book will get you through.
Yeah, it's a beautiful blueprint. Because for me, I didn't rehab wasn't an option. I was the primary caretaker and provider and all those things, and so I just kind of had to get my shit together, and maybe took me a little longer than I would have wanted. But hey, I'm here.
How did you detox if from alcohol if you weren't in a rehab? Just the hard way?
I stopped. I just went cold turkey, and I was pretty lucky. A lot of people, I would tell them my drinking. I was a binger guy. I wasn't necessarily an everyday guy, but it was, if I bought a 30 pack, how did the second pack of beer show up? I was that guy.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that I didn't. I was so lucky, knock on wood, to not have seizures or anything else. And now, years later, like go to the doctor and be like, yeah, your liver and kidney functions are great. Your health. I was like, holy shit, yeah, like, thank you for looking out for me.
Probably because you lucked out, probably because your age. If you'd have done that 10 years later, you might not be looking as good as you are.
Yeah, no, man, I've got family members that it's taken their life. So, I had to admit that for sure.
When my mother died, the day she died, I drank, what size of vodka is that? Fifth? A pint?
Yeah,
Pint.
it's like fifth pint. Yeah.
They call it. Fifth is a big one. Anyway, I drank a pint of vodka like that, and I stayed drunk, very drunk, for 3 years. I'm not kidding. I would wake up, drink a bottle of vodka this big, 12-pack of beer. At night, if I woke up at 1 a.m. and I didn't have any booze, I'd have to get to the liquor store before 2 a.m. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep. Mm-hmm. And one day, I pickled my insides from alcohol. I couldn't even swallow water. That's how bad my lining was here. And I was on the floor in the fetal position. I was also my dad's caretaker, and I had to take him to the doctor that day, and I couldn't get up off the floor. and I saw his bottle of Vicodin on the dining room table. And I said, I was afraid to take it because I couldn't even swallow water.
Sure.
I took a couple of these Vicodin. My pains went away. I could stand up, and I took my dad to the doctor. And that was when I started to crave opiates, I guess.
Yeah.
And the opiate helped me kick alcohol. I basically quit alcohol cold turkey because when I was drinking, I couldn't feel the Vicodin.
Yeah, you found the greater solution, right?
Yeah, but it helped me get off alcohol, which I'm happy I don't drink these days. I really am.
Yeah. I'm glad you don't. I'm glad I don't, because
Yeah, man.
our meeting might have been something a little different that would have
Yeah, I
been
mean,
good for
we had
either of us.
trouble linking up, and we're both sober.
Right.
It was the
uh,
holidays.
yeah. Well, you started down this road. Like, when did alcohol even really come into your life, or drugs in general? Was it when you underage, or was it really after 21? Because people are amazed.
Yeah, I had older brothers and sisters, and I was hanging out with adults on
Sure.
movie sets and stuff. So, and my parents had a liquor cabinet at home. So I used to go in and take little drinks and stuff when I was probably 12, 13. I started doing that with my high school buddies and neighborhood pals. So, but just dabbling.
Right.
But it was always fun for me. I think that's one of the major elements about drugs that I got into was the excitement of it all. I like the excitement of doing something I'm not supposed to do. I like how it feels when I'm evading police. I like that whole the excitement of that. I think really what being in the movies did, it made me an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
So I found other life just kind of boring. When I went back to school after traveling around, it was kind of boring just going to classes and doing that kind of stuff. So I think that's another thing that I definitely had to work on in therapy is not seeking such an amazing time out here and being able to turn inwards and adjust how I feel in here more than basing it on what's going on out here. That
Yeah.
really helped me turn the corner and really helped me take control of my own mood throughout the day. When I'm not feeling good, when I'm depressed, I know right away. I'm like, you got to stop that. That thought process is getting you nowhere. I just know that it's not a helpful thought. It's not a helpful mood. And I sit with it and I turn it around immediately. Similarly, whenever I'm just giving you like my best life hacks one after the other.
Go for it.
Similarly, as soon as I get the thought or an urge to get high, I know right away that that's an insane thought. I know that I know that it's not sane for me to want to go and smoke meth. So I say to myself, okay, you're having an insane thought, get rid of it immediately or it's inevitable destruction. And that's how I just do that. Because if I sit and like romanticize about what it'd be like to twirl that meth pipe around or to, chase that dragon, I don't know what'll happen once that, process develops momentum. So I simply don't let it happen.
And that's a tough thing for people in general, let alone us in recovery, because we have to start acknowledging that feeling, sitting with the feeling sometimes. Like I've been challenged not to avoid it with TV, music, podcast, whatever it is, and just really sit, recognize what it is, process it a little, and maybe understand why am I feeling that. Thus, if I'm feeling it, then it starts a thought process. And, like you said, putting that block, which I still have to do work on, putting that block of like, it's an insane thought. I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great hack for me because it's cut and dry. I just know that's a crazy thing to think.
Yeah.
Stop being crazy. And
Yeah.
that was the other a hard part in early recovery was getting into treatment, looking at myself in the mirror, which I'm not exaggerating. I had avoided mirrors I didn't see my reflection for a long time. And when I finally saw my reflection, the way I looked, in those pictures without any teeth, I literally jumped. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and really be honest about the fact that I had become insane,
Mm.
that I had lost my mind. I could not trust my own thoughts and my own emotions. and this needed to be dealt with, and I need to pray to God to restore my sanity. But that's not an easy thing to do, to look in the mirror and say, you're a crazy guy. You've lost your mind to the point where you're crazy to the point of destruction. Like, what's the difference between jail and a sanitarium?
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah.
So that was difficult. But unless you do that, you can't really fix the problem unless you address it.
Yeah.
So coming to terms with the fact that I've lost my mind was difficult, but very necessary.
Well, and with the opioids, I mean, you shared that there, just seeing it, God, it's opioids, especially fentanyl, man. It's so freaking scary out there now. But
I can't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. When I got off the street right as fentanyl was coming out. So I maybe had a couple encounters with it, but I mean, from what I hear now, like heroin you can't even get heroin. It's just all fentanyl.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. It's just crazy, but I know at least a dozen people that have died. And it's just, the scariest part are the kids that aren't even drug addicts at all. They're just partying, and they order a pill online because they want to party on a weekend, and they end up getting sick or dying off of a bad pill they got online. Horrible problem. Please do not order pills online. Please.
Yeah. And, and don't have the, my dealer or any of these things that we hear with the work that I do. I mean, numerous, moms that have come in that have lost their sons and daughters this way, that, it was exactly that. Like, I mean, an example, one kid doing very well in college, but anxiety, whatever, and goes, I'll just get a Xanax off of Snapchat. And it was not Xanax. It's 100% fentanyl in there. That's it.
No.
And he drank here and there and stuff like that. But like you said, it's not like the experimentation, that people think it was at one time, that, high school. Yeah. He got drunk at a party or smoked some weed or whatever. And not that those aren't killer drugs, because, hey, alcoholic by admittance. But it's frightening. It scares me for the future, for our kids, if we don't really start to focus on the sickness of our society and do the work and encourage it to happen within the home. That mental health has to become a greater priority. It's gonna get worse.
I think that's very important what you just said, and I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, where like you said, I mean, I grew up in a home of addiction. You grew up in a home of addiction. One parent struggling with gambling addiction, and and I've had people on here that have suffered from that disease of it too, and these are things not to take lightheartedly.
Absolutely not. Another thing, Jason, I want to mention, I'm glad we're talking today, because I had a couple things that I wanted to talk about.
Please.
It's very important if you're in like a bad way right now, right? You're on the street, you're about to get sick, you have no money, you need to boost something for your next fix. Like if you're in that spot, literally the next thing you do, you can begin changing your situation very quickly. So it doesn't take a week to turn your life around. Literally the next thing you choose to do can turn your life around. So I don't know how to articulate this, but if you go to a detox today, your entire outcome will shift dramatically. Yeah. My point is, you can make very good progress with a little amount of effort, but you just have to turn in that direction.
Yeah.
So don't feel overwhelmed by don't despair. Don't despair, because one phone call, reaching out to one person, saying no to that one next bag can literally turn your entire situation around.
Yeah. It's about doing and I don't know if in meetings, if you hit them, the next right thing.
The next right thing.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I was trying to say. If you get into that, start doing the next right thing, And it'll only take about 3 or 4 things, and you'll see your situation will change. God, the universe will respond to you if you start to try. That's the key. Life will respond.
I think it's important to explain a lot of these concepts, especially with newcomers. They're kind of lost on, well, what the hell does that mean? What is, spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection mean? And there's a lot of these concepts that can understandably elude people, especially if you haven't had a spiritual awakening of any kind. You don't know what the hell spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection means. I didn't. I was like, okay. My sponsor's like, oh, you'll figure it out soon enough.
You'll know. That's the beauty about these 12 steps. They are an instruction manual on how to have a spiritual awakening. Because Bill and Bill say, listen, we're in this position. The only thing that's going to save us is a spiritual awakening. God is the only guy that's going to pull us out of the spot we're in. And he's giving you instructions on how to do it. And that's why the last step says, after having had a spiritual awakening through going through these steps. So really, that's the point of those 12 steps, is to get you to that spiritual. I mean, this is just my interpretation, obviously. So, really, I feel like I had that moment. And I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And if you do those steps, it will happen for you. If you commit to those steps and work earnestly through that, and it doesn't have to take a long time. It can happen very quickly for you too.
Yeah, you just have to put the max effort. That's the one thing I realized with my relapse, is that I was doing the I got this when I never had it. I was fooling myself that I was working it, and really I was a dry drunk, and there is a difference, So
addiction is the only thing. It's the only thing really where, like, what other thing do you have success by not doing something?
Right.
Like, as an addict, if I go on the first day, if I don't use, I'm already a black belt. I'm already the best I can be at this. I just have to keep doing it over time, right? I just do it tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So it's a very strange thing to have success. Like, the only way I can prove that I'm successfully recovered is if time goes by. And so it's just an odd thing to deal with, to win at something by doing nothing. I think that's why I'm good at it.
There you have it. Thanks. They just brightened the light on me. Light bulb went off. Well, and we get that ultimate promise, right? We are restored to sanity.
And what's sanity, right? Like, it's such a blurred line, but what sanity is for me is me living in a way where I'm joyful and my life is manageable, and I'm engaged in people's lives.
Yeah.
Because trying to figure out what's sanity, you know what I mean? But if you're engaged in harmful behaviors, you need to take a look at things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that rush, that adrenaline, those things we search for, right? Let me ask you this. This is an interesting one, and I've heard people of all different addictions say this, be it the gambling addict or the alcoholic, the heroin addict, whatever it was. It wasn't even so much the use of the substance. Like, I don't know about you. Did you ever on edge, the anxiety? And it was before you did that substance, or the gambling addict showed up at the casino or bought the lottery tickets, when they actually entered the location or met with the dealer, that all of a sudden the anxiety was like, oh.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's a hopeless feeling when you're a heroin addict. You're going to be dope sick every morning. You wake up, you have nothing, you're on the street, and you need to come up with $200 before you're sick. It's not a good spot to be in.
Oh, hey, Shaun, you listen to the podcast, so you know the way I like to wrap it up. Let's do some fun random questions before I leave you with the final thoughts. How about it?
Ready, let's do it.
All right. Because I think it would be a good thing. You write your book, about your story, and they go, "Hey, let's make this into a movie or a documentary series or whatever it is, a Netflix series." Who out there would you want to play you?
I was gonna say Jonah. Gonna say Jonah, but I want to play me. I want to play me. But if anybody, I would love to watch Jonah do it. If there's anybody, there's a couple people like on my bucket list. Like if I would love to do a scene with Jonah Hill at some point. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think it would
I
be.
just saw today he dropped a new promo for his new movie with Eddie Murphy. Looks great.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jonah Hill is awesome.
He's great. And he just put out a new documentary on Netflix called Stutz. Have you seen it, Jason?
Uh-uh.
You need to watch this. And please, your audience also needs to watch this. It's an incredibly powerful documentary. It's him and his therapist.
Huh.
And the therapist is sharing some very powerful tools that people can use in your own life instantly to immediately start to end depression and make yourself feel better, like these specific exercises that you can do. And he made it specifically to share these things. He probably pays this guy $1,000 an hour, this therapist, and he's giving it to us for free. So I highly recommend it. It's called Stutz, Stutz on Netflix.
Oh yeah, I'll check that out. And that is a wonderful thing when people that have that ability to do it, just give it away for free, or this price of a subscription, obviously. So
right.
Whatever it is. Boy, now I got derailed from what my next question was going to be.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Oh no, I was going to say, how awesome would that be to actually play yourself? Because I don't know if you've ever seen it, Richard Pryor's movie JoJo Dancer. I love that movie where he plays himself.
Movie. Yeah, that's such a good movie. I actually know his son Mason.
Really?
Actually, but yeah, he's amazing. I walked into a comedy club one time. It was in Arizona, and I did my set, and I came off the stage, and I'm watching this young guy. He's like 18 or 19 years old, and he looks just like Richard Pryor, and he sounds just like Richard Pryor, and he's killing the crowd. And I got chills. I'm like, I feel like I'm watching young Richard Pryor. It's like crazy. And then he got off the stage, and I shook his hand. I go, "Hey, man, you're really good." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm Mason Pryor." Crazy, dude. Crazy story.
Well, being we're both fans of stand-up comedy, 3 favorite stand-up comedians.
3 favorite stand-up comedians: Sebastian Maniscalco, Bill Cosby, and Jerry Seinfeld.
Seinfeld. All right. I like the irreverent comedy. Just like the dude could talk about anything, it'd be like, watched a podcast today. 2 guys talking recovery. What's up with that? But
why do they call it the Lakers? There's no lake. Where's the lake?
Right.
Yeah, he's great. And the sitcom, right? I mean, I was raised on Seinfeld.
Absolutely.
And that guy Sebastian Maniscalco, I saw him in Laugh Factory or Comedy Store 20 years ago. I used to watch him when he was just starting out, and he was the funniest guy in the club, and everybody knew he would blow up. So it's been nice watching him do his Netflix special. He's funny, that guy. Yeah, I can watch him do anything.
Oh, he's great. I actually saw and met him, and it was probably, let me do the math, is about 20 years ago. He was opening for Dice, and my brother was doing marketing for a Indian casino up in Northern California. And so he goes, "Hey, Dice is coming." We had the kind of parents we grew up on that stuff. It's like nothing was off limits. And so we went and met Dice, but Sebastian opened and he killed it. He was, he had this bit at the time about the pink spoon at Baskin Robbins and taste testing.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. He had the whole crowd the whole night, fuck the pink spoon. And he was awesome.
Yeah, and he was killing them back then. It's funny you say Dice. If you said, "Nate, give me 4 comedians," I might have said Dice. He is one of my favorites, definitely of all time. And he's obviously Madison Square Garden, Hickory Dickory Dock, and all that. But as far as live in a club, he's one of the best comics you can see live in a nightclub. If you run into a comedy club and Dice is there, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, he has a that it was neat to go to that show because he had a masterful way. The crowd was pretty not not rowdy in a negative way, but there's people that were there and having fun and the whole and he just had a way of taking from the crowd and you could tell he was on his toes developing new stuff right then and there,
Yeah.
and it's like,
And he was in the zone, sounds like.
yeah, that's a
And I got to
wordsmith.
mention one other guy. I don't know how I forgot this guy. I think, for my money, this guy's the funniest human being on earth. His name is Kirk Fox. You know him?
I don't.
Check him out. He's on TV. He's been in a bunch of movies. One movie he was in recently that I keep watching over and over is Bulletproof 2, the
Okay.
sequel to the Adam Sandler. He's the funniest guy on earth. And even his Instagram, I don't know how his brain works like this. You got to look him up. Kirk Fox.
All right. I'll write that down and we'll get him looked up.
I did a
Go ahead.
YouTube series called Why Not Weiss, and it was really I kind of loved it. It was my labor of love. I kind of inspired by Curb Your Enthusiasm, and it's on YouTube. If you look at episode 5, which is probably the episode I'm most proud of, because Kirk Fox is actually in there, and I got the Ron Jeremy, to play my dad. And in the episode, my dad's in a nursing home, and he gets kicked out of the nursing home for fraternizing with the nurses, which is a true story. My dad was in a
Okay.
nursing home and married at 80 years old, married the nurse from the nursing home. An old man putting it down at 80 years old, baby.
Your dad was a charmer, huh?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
Oh shit, that's too good. Okay, this is one I like, especially because I know you're an aficionado. You're on an island. Whatever reason, you can have one movie and one music artist's greatest hits with you. What are they?
Okay, Big Lebowski pops out. I love that movie. It would be a double disc. It'd be Big Lebowski and Scarface. Those are my
Okay.
two favorite movies. I can honestly say that, and I've never even really thought about that. So thanks for helping me figure that out.
All right.
And as far as an artist, a musical artist, I don't know. There's a bunch. I can tell you that I feel like Bob Marley was a prophet in terms of I've never seen anybody maintain a bad mood with some Bob Marley in the background. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
music puts you in a good mood, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, you're right. I remember the first time I played Bob Marley. My kids are like, "Who's this, Dad?" Bob Marley. Is that the weed guy? I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so."
Yeah, he's the weed guy. He
Oh,
actually has done a lot for the weed business, right? I mean, when we were
oh,
coming up,
sure.
it was all Bob Marley was kind of like the entrance into weed because that's you bought a Bob Marley CD and that store had black lights and black light posters and incense.
And you had the remember the Bob Marley tapestries.
Oh, absolutely. I had a Bob Marley black
Yeah,
light poster.
you could always identify your pot smoking friends. They had the Bob Marley tapestry on the wall or a
Yeah.
black light or something.
Speaking of tapestry, I have this one, but that was put. Can you see that? I mean, I kind of have
Yeah,
it so the light can come in. But that was put here by the guy before me. That wasn't my call.
you just went with it, huh? Leave the good
Yeah,
sunshiny vibes.
I don't have the energy to take it down. No, I like it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. All right. Here's a good one. So, I mean, you're getting out there, you're doing stand up, you're getting all kinds of exciting projects, which I wish this show was about that because I love talking about that stuff. But I do have to ask a little bit, what are we working on now? Where are we heading with stuff? We got some more stand up gigs. You're going to start getting touring behind it.
Yeah, that's my plan. I'm gonna do a tour in the springtime. But right now, the last like 5, 6 months, I've just been working on stand up comedy. Trying to get good at it, and I've been doing open mics. So I've been
Nice.
playing hard rooms. So I've been taking my lumps like a man. And it's not always easy, but I find that people are so supportive. Like I did comedy 20 years ago, and I'd get on stage, and I felt like people were like, "Okay, make us laugh." And I feel like I get up there now, and they're like, "You can do this. You got this, bro." So it's a very nice energy to walk up there with.
That's
I'm
beautiful
working
to
on
hear.
stand up. I wasn't really thinking about getting back in the movie business, but I did a movie. Some producers called me to be in a movie, and going on set, being in the movie, made me catch the bug again. That is so much fun. It is like the greatest job in the world. So I would like to get back into a movie if I could.
Yeah.
If you're watching, call me.
That's all right. You ever need a 6-1 cohort, give me a call. I miss acting. I loved it. Primarily, here's a funny story before I ask you to leave us with some words of inspiration. So after my divorce, I got a commercial agent, and my highest paying commercial was for an attorney in the Bay Area. And I show up there, and they're like, okay, we need you to play someone that has been in trouble with the law. We're going to handcuff you in this, simulate an arrest. We need to simulate that you're drunk, and then you're going to call your significant other or someone to bail you out. Do you think you can do that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can nail this one. But yeah, that was my highest paying gig I've had as acting. Anywho, Shaun, man, thanks. This is great to finally connect with you.
Yeah, it's been nice talking, Jason.
Yeah, if I get down there, I'll let you know. We'll connect in person, hit a meeting or whatever it is, man. But I'm just I'm really proud of you. It's heartwarming to see that, you're doing that work, and you really are, like you're sharing with me, the people that come up to you at Comic-Con. It really does mean something, and I applaud you for sharing your story and putting it out there, because it makes such a difference.
Thanks very much, Jason. I appreciate those words.
Floor is yours, good sir. If you whatever advice you might want to drop.
I have a really cool thing that somebody told me that I try to think about every day. I try to think about it all the time, and it blows my mind. My guru, his name is Sad Guru. He's all over YouTube. He said this, that if you remain in constant conscious interaction with every atom in existence, and in your heart, you are mother to the earth, even inanimate objects will reverberate differently in your presence. So if you stay consciously, if you're consciously aware that every atom in your system is in constant contact with every other atom in existence, so you're aware of your oneness, and in your heart is so open, you feel like you're mother to every person on earth. If you can close your eyes and just sit with that feeling. So if you can be in constant interaction, and in your heart, you're mother to the world, even inanimate objects reverberate differently around you. I always try to think about that, and if I'm not in that mood, I'll close my eyes and just try to raise my pitch, raise my frequency, because if we're not conscious about it, it can go here, it can go there, it can go anywhere. So we have to try to maintain control of our mind, and then my other just bit of advice would be, if you really have an earnest desire to do anything, and you ask the creator, whoever it is, for help, and you try at it, you're going to have success. I dare you to prove me wrong. So, pray for what you want, go for what you want, and you will get what you want.
Shaun, this has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. It was fun.
This is the Knocking Doors Down podcast, featuring celebrities, experts, and everyday people who have overcome adversities, including addiction, mental health, and trauma, to live purposeful lives. And that's what Knocking Doors Down is all about.
This podcast contains the views and opinions of the Knocking Doors Down hosts and their guests to the show. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for informational purposes only. And because each person is sharing their unique perspective, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast and website are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. Privacy is of the utmost importance to us. For those wishing anonymity, people, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast have been changed to protect confidentiality at the request of certain guests. This website or podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever, including but not limited to establishing standard of care in a legal sense or as a basis for expert witness testimony. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient relationship. If you find any errors in any of the content of this podcast or blogs, please send a message through the contact page. This podcast is owned by KDD Media Company.